My name is Michael Perenich. I'm a personal injury lawyer here in the Tampa Bay area, and I also handle medical malpractice cases. And I wanted to talk for a minute about a recent verdict that came out of Hillsborough for $70.8 million. It's a lot of money, and I kind of want to break it down for you a little bit, give you some behind the scenes look as to what happens with that money after a verdict is received. So, to talk briefly about this case, it is a medical malpractice action, as I mentioned, against Tampa General Hospital, Brandon. And Tampa General Hospital, Brandon is an offshoot of Tampa General Hospital. The case concerns a patient that came to Tampa General for a really bad headache and seemingly benign. Um, Healthcare practitioners are kind of on guard when they hear a really bad headache, the worst headache she's ever had. And the patient complained about it, and the nurse practitioner that saw the patient chalked it up to be a bad headache and gave her some headache medication to alleviate her symptoms. And unfortunately, it was not a headache. It was a cerebral venous sinus thrombosis, or a blood clot in the brain. Had the nurse practitioner ordered a CT, she would have seen that the patient was suffering from this CVST and could have administered drugs to um, save her from the injuries she had as a result. So after she was dismissed or discharged home, she ended up having a stroke and developed paralysis, blindness, a stutter, and um, she's been that way since. So I want to show you something that not a lot of people look at. I think it would be helpful to see from time to time because I think it gives you a little bit of a background as to how this all works out after a jury deliberates, which is a verdict form. And the first part of it asks whether or not the healthcare practitioner was negligent and whether the hospital is the apparent agent of the healthcare practitioner or nurse practitioner. Um, this apparent agency question is maybe a little bit something tangential for this conversation, but I'm happy to discuss it if anyone wants me to discuss. And I just want to talk briefly about her damages here. We see that her past medical bills were $1 million. That's a lot in medical bills. That's the total amount of expenses that the plaintiff has incurred up to the date of this trial. We see future medicals, which this typically is a number that is given by physicians that is substantiated by the medical evidence. And the physicians need to opine that it is reasonably certain to incur in the future, not just, it's probably going to happen, that these are medical expenses the plaintiff is going to incur in the future with reasonable medical certainty. Terms of art, maybe not interesting to you, but I'm going to keep going. Lost past earnings, 287,000. This is money that the plaintiff is no longer making because she's incapacitated and disabled. Future loss earnings, these are all the money that she would have made in the future. Of course, other things are taken into consideration, like fringe benefits and other things of that nature. Then we have past pain and suffering. These are the non-economic damages. We see things, pain and suffering, disability, physical impairment, disfigurement, mental anguish, inconvenience, loss of capacity for the enjoyment of life. I've tried in other cases of mine to break all these things down uh, one by one, allowing the jury to give a number for each one because sometimes you have a client who's seen the doctor 300 times, and that number alone is inconvenient. But it is certainly an inconvenience for someone who has to stop what they're doing and go see a physician because of the negligence of another person, right? So inconvenience is an interesting thing because we all hate to be inconvenienced in any way, and it is definitely something that should be considered when providing this number. So, anyhow, that's my own personal vendetta, I guess. The next number is future pain and suffering. And when we say pain and suffering damages, these are non-economics. This is basically what the plaintiff is going through. And we see the futures being 49 million. That is a lot of money. And that's all based on, and I'm guessing here, I wasn't there. That's most likely based on the amount of pain and suffering that they believe that the plaintiff has incurred up to the date, and then extrapolating that for her life expectancy and what she's going to incur in the future. So this gives you an idea of what's going on. The judge then tallies this number up, puts all these together, and gets $70.8 million dollars. Sometimes the jury does it, but here the judge did it, and we just hope that the judge did it right. But this is the verdict form. I just wanted to show you if you've never seen one. You can pull this from cases when they are tried, obviously, to a verdict, and you can see what the verdict form is. It's helpful in, of course, understanding what was going on. So, $70 million dollars. How did this happen? How do we go from here? What do we do? There's a lot of questions. A lot of people are outraged on one side or the other. Oh, well, she's never going to see any of this money because Florida is so tough on medical malpractice. They could only have to pay $200,000 in the event of a medical malpractice case. I saw that as a comment. I also saw that this is the reason why healthcare expenses are so high. People like this making these claims. Well, everyone's kind of entitled to their own opinion, and that's perfectly fine. But the reality is that the insurance company that insures Tampa General Hospital is never going to pay $70 million dollars. Okay, so first of all, a lot of hospitals have their own internal risk management systems that pay damages up to, let's say, $10 million dollars. We're just making it up. This is not particular to this case. And then they have excess policies of insurance that kick in after that. Well, here they have to all get together and figure out what they're going to do. The defense attorney and the hospital has already said they're going to appeal. Now, the verdict itself is just some sort of security as to what the plaintiff should get. So a jury has said the plaintiff is entitled to 70 million. It doesn't always mean you're going to get that number. In fact, anytime you get a large verdict, it potentially can hurt you, right? So if she got a verdict for, let's say, $5 million, dollars, they might go, oh, well, that's great, we'll pay it. Because I mean, that's really low for this type of case. She's going to need care for the rest of her life. So, but you get a big verdict, and for $70 million, dollars, they're thinking, well, even if we spent $7 million dollars fighting it, and we were to beat that verdict down and they were to accept, let's say, $50 million, dollars, it's $7 million dollars well spent. They may have spent $1 million dollars just fighting this case. Maybe. I can tell you that you tally up the attorney's time and everyone in their office and the experts that they got to hire, it's probably close to $1 million dollars just to fight the case, right? So why not just offer that money to the plaintiff? Uh, I'm sure the insurance companies have the numbers on this, that it makes more sense to fight these cases than to just pay. So, in fact, I know they do. So, what I would also add is that this is normally a bargaining chip. Like a verdict should be, oh, we're getting this money, but it's not. We had a case about a year ago against the same attorney who defended the Tampa General Hospital, and we literally just got the case finalized because it went on appeal because we had to fight post verdict motions and everything else. This is what happens when you get a verdict. You have to fight for it. You have to continue fighting. So a lot of people see our attorney's fees and go, "Oh, well, you're taking, this percentage, 40% for litigation. It's a lot of money." I tell them it is a lot of money for sure, but we are fighting for that fee, we're fighting for you until they strike a check for you, right? So until that very moment, we are still fighting for our fees. And even after that, even after that check is written, we're still doing work for our clients. I can't tell you how many times I've been completely done with a case and something else comes about and we're still working for it. But this is not the end for these people, unfortunately. It's not the end for this plaintiff, and I wish it was because I really believe she's entitled to this money based on what she's been through and what I know about the case. It's very unfortunate, but it is the beginning, and luckily the attorneys advocating for her have a good history of dealing with cases on appeal. I believe that it's a case where they could go in front of a judge and the judge could say, yeah, the 70 million is kind of high. They can do this thing. The trial court can do this thing called a remediator, which is reduce the verdict. They can also appeal the case and go, well, the case went up on appeal. Now you have to try it again because there was some mistake, there was some problem, there was an issue that the trial judge failed to address, and now the case is being tried again. So even at that point, even if the appellate court comes back and says, hey, you guys were wrong, you have to retry the case or whatever may happen, the case can still be negotiated. So sometimes a verdict is just the starting point for a negotiation. It has happened to me. I'd rather be paid on a verdict, but we aren't always. And so the public generally sees a verdict and says, oh wow, Tampa General Hospital is going to write a check for $70 million. They're going to go out of business. Hospitals aren't going out of business. They have insurance for this particular reason because people make mistakes, right? And that's part of practicing healthcare. The idea is that some mistakes are okay and other mistakes are not okay. And this one was a mistake that the jury felt that shouldn't have been made. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may has about it. I'm happy to provide some further insight as to what goes on. Feel free to leave a comment or contact me directly. Thanks.